I stumbled upon a haunted diary of a concubine in feudal Japan, and uncovered a dark secret. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, a chill rushed through me. My breath caught in my throat. It was a room I'd never been in before, hidden in the dark corners of my grandma's attic. Dust swirled in the narrow beam of light, illuminating cobwebs as thick as my fingers. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. My routine was simple. A few hours of boring chores after school, then curled up with a book, drowning in stories that whisked me far away. But that day, that was different. What started as mundane spiraled into a nightmare. The diary lay there, weathered and worn, the crimson binding a striking contrast against the gray surroundings. As I picked it up, a musty smell rose, mingling with the faint scent of sandalwood oil. I can still recall the way it felt in my hands, ancient, sticky, the pages clammy as if they were weeping for the words trapped inside. I opened it cautiously, heart racing, the covers creaking in protest. And then the words slammed into me. Tales of a young concubine's life filled with betrayal, dark rituals, and unending sorrow. She spoke of whispers in the night, shadows lurking just beyond the flickering light of a candle, an oppressive darkness that seemed to follow her. My skin prickled. I could almost hear her voice, soft and trembling, urging me to be cautious. The more I read, the more the atmosphere thickened. Strange noises crept in, a soft rustle, like a silk kimono brushing against the ground. My pulse quickened. Shadows formed in the corners of my vision, darting away when I turned. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating me in their secrets. Objects shifted, just a bit, like they were trying to get my attention. I felt eyes on me. Why was I feeling this way? It was just a diary, right? But it wasn't just words. It was raw, it was alive. My chest tightened. I should have left, but I couldn't. And then I saw it. A flicker in the darkness, the unmistakable outline of a figure standing just out of reach, cloaked in shadow. I froze. A scream lodged in my throat, but nothing came out. The air crackled with tension, every hair on my body standing on end. The world narrowed in that moment, and I knew I was not alone. As I stared into the darkness, the figure shifted slightly. My heart raced. The diary slipped from my grasp and hit the floor with a dull thud. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The minute the diary fell, the figure dissolved into the shadows, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. I hesitated, mind racing, a storm of thoughts crashing against the edges of my comprehension. The sudden stillness felt wrong, too quiet, as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for something unspeakable to unfold. Instinctively, I bent to retrieve the diary, fingers trembling as I brushed away dust, but instead of the pages, my hand closed around something cold and hard wedged beneath the floorboards. I pulled at it, heart pounding, until it slid free, a small, ornate mirror with a cracked surface, its frame intricately carved with lotus flowers. As I lifted it, faint whispers wove through the attic, wrapping around me like a shroud. Leave, while you can, I jumped, the mirror slipping from my fingers and this time shattering against the wooden floor. In that moment, a low, guttural growl filled the air. Fear coiled tightly around my throat. My heart raced as shards glimmered like tiny, jagged eyes, reflecting the darkness around me. I stumbled back, instinctively pressing my back against the wall, eyes scanning for any source of the sound. Suddenly, the once still shadows began to undulate, swirling like smoke rising from an unseen fire. They stretched toward me, forming into grotesque shapes that mimicked my fear, taunting every deep-seated tremor of dread within me. The whispers escalated, overlapping until they became a cacophony, filling the space with incoherent secrets of anguish and betrayal. I raised my hands in a futile gesture of defense, my body shivering from the cold that seeped into my bones. "Find me," the voice dripped with despair, echoing all around me like the shadows themselves were alive, each word fueling my horror. The darkness thickened and swirled faster, a vortex of despair that pulled at my feet, as if the floor was conscripting me into its depths. I fought to break free but felt a strange compulsion to move closer, drawn to the whispers that felt like an extension of the diary, begging me to answer a call I couldn't understand. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut with a deafening bang, the sound reverberating through the air, sealing me in a prison of horror. The shadows coalesced, revealing a long, delicate hand, adorned with rings that gleamed in the dim light. It reached toward me, ethereal yet undeniably tangible. Help-meth words, though soft, echoed with an urgency that clawed at my heart. I recognized the eerie softness of the voice from the passages I had read. My mind spiraled with confusion and fear. Should I run? Should I answer? Before I could decide, the shadows shifted violently, and the figure stepped forth, revealing her face illuminated by a pale yet unearthly glow. Her features were hauntingly beautiful, an illusion of tranquility marred by a deep sorrow etched in her eyes. She seemed both a savior and a specter, bound by her past, and I could sense her yearning for liberation, but just as I took a hesitant step forward, the attic quaked, dust raining down like a shroud of despair. The voice morphed into monstrous wails, filled with such profound agony that I staggered back, the heart-wrenching sound tearing through me. "Release me. Release us all." I felt my world tilting, the darkness pushing against my very being, a hunger unfurling in its depths like a beast awakened. Panic surged through me. I was the intruder here, an unwelcome guest in this wretched prison of the damned. I had to escape. My pulse thundered in my ears. I turned, pounding against the door with my shoulders, but it wouldn't budge, and then I heard an unmistakable sound of footsteps padding closer, soft yet deliberate, creeping along the floorboards. My breath ceased, heart racing as I turned slowly, unwilling to face whatever awaited me in the gathering darkness. Emerging from the shadows was another figure, hunched and grotesque, its face obscured by flowing hair, a thin smile stretching impossibly wide. The glint of something sharp flickered in the half-light. As it drew nearer, I realized it held a blade, the edge glistening ominously. "Unlock the secrets," it hissed, eyes narrowing with malice. My throat tightened in terror, and I stumbled back against the door one last time. I felt the cold grip of the other figure's hand on my arm, pulling me toward the abyss of shadows that promised horror beyond measure. "Join us," it whispered, as the darkness shattered around me, the world collapsing into infinite night. I closed my eyes, embracing the furious tide of fear, knowing whatever lay in the dark could not be escaped nor understood. And as the world faded, an echo of laughter pierced the veil, chilling me to my core. And just like that, the echoes of the past held me fast, preparing to unveil unspeakable truths. The echoes of laughter twisted into shrieks, the very air pulsating around me as if it was alive, pressing against my skin, suffocating my thoughts. I felt the biting chill seep deeper into my marrow, even as the laughter morphed into something far more sinister. The blade shimmered with a hunger of its own, a promise of blood and torment. "Please." The plea escaped my lips, weak and trembling. I could feel the presence of the spectral figure beside me, its grip unyielding like iron shackles fettering a soul to a fate it never chose. The shadows quivered, cloaking the chamber in a suffocating blanket of despair. "I don't understand." My voice cracked with the weight of agony and fear. "Understanding comes with a price," the grotesque figure rasped, a twisted smile curving its lips. The blade jerked in its hand, poised with a menace that sent icy tendrils spreading through my chest. "Unlock the secrets," it hissed again, although the words held a new layer of promise. Or was it a threat? My mind raced to decipher what secrets could be held within the relentless grasp of this unsettling entity. An image of the diary flickered in my thoughts, pages stained with ink, filled with confessions and secrets of the past, confessions that may very well bind my fate to the fate of the tormented souls trapped in this nightmarish realm. In an instant, the crushing shadows pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Panic surged within me, driving me to act. I will help. Just let me go. I gasped, desperation lacing my words. But they were merely wisps lost in the tempest around us, overshadowed by the malefic silence that followed. With a surge of courage, I spun, wrenching my arm free from the ethereal grip. I lunged towards the remnants of the shattered mirror, shards glittering like malevolent stars on the ground. Maybe it was how the glass had revealed the truth, or perhaps there was magic still lingering within. I grasped one sharp fragment in my palm, the pain that blossomed within my skin grounding me, anchoring me to reality amidst the encroaching dread. Do you wish to see? The haggard figure whispered, eyes gleaming with anticipation. The other presence stepped closer, pulling me into its orbit, blurring the lines between fear and a twisted curiosity I had never known before. Show me. I urged, my own voice a fragile quiver. To unravel the enigma, I must confront the darkness head-on. Perhaps those whispers in the attic had been nothing more than the ravings of lost souls' voices calling out for release, for liberation from their torment. Then look, the voice instructed, a command cloaked in coaxing tones. As I pressed the shard against the tattered surface of the diary, it pulsed like a living thing, warmth poured into me from the jagged edge, an electric connection that resonated in my core. The world around me shifted, the fabric of reality fraying at the seams as I was drawn into a swirling abyss. The attic began to fade, replaced by visions drenched in sorrow. I found myself standing in a dimly lit chamber draped in silk, surrounded by shadowy figures lost in a dance of longing. They moved with a warped elegance, their faces masked by delicate veils, each turn revealing glimpses of tragedy painted in despair. I could see a young woman at the center. She radiated beauty, yet her eyes told a tale of unspeakable pain reflecting a world trapped between devotion and betrayal. The woman's gaze met mine, and the memories slammed into me like a suffocating tide. I felt her heartache seep into my own, the ache of a lost love, the burden of illicit desires, and a soul forever bound to a fate decided by forces beyond her control. Within the depths of her yearning, I sensed the dark history of the diary of lives tangled with secrecy, deception, and bloodshed. Suddenly, the scene twisted, collapsing into chaos as shadows stretched forth, reaching for the figures, their outlines blurring into grotesque forms that screamed of anguish. The air brisked with the chilling sensation of violence, as cries of despair echoed through the space. The woman stared back at me, her expression morphing into pure terror, pleading, "Help me. Help us." Just as she reached out, a gargantuan shadow loomed behind her, a specter that swallowed the light. Its eyes were burning embers of malice, and the icy grip on my heart tightened as I recognized the entity creeping behind the figure with the blade, a puppet master orchestrating the horrors that unfolded. The vision shattered, and I was violently yanked back to the attic, gasping for breath as the weight of my own heart threatened to break me. A presence lingered behind me, eyes burning with rage. I felt a crushing urge to flee before the darkness unleashed its final wrath. "Unlock the secrets," the grotesque figure taunted again, and an unsettling cackle merged with the remnants of the echoes I had sensed in the diary. But before I could turn to make my escape, the attic door burst open, not to freedom but to the world of shadows spilling in, a torrent of anguished souls writhing at the threshold. They rushed toward me, clawing for a final chance at liberation, and I stood frozen, trapped between two doomed fates, the laughter and the cries spiraling into a terrifying crescendo. As I faced the relentless tide, the last thing I glimpsed was the woman's tortured face appearing once more amidst the shadows, her mouth moving urgently, but the words were lost in the chaos. In that moment, a single realization struck me: here would be no escape. I was entangled in the very nightmare I hoped to unveil, and to seek truth might cost me everything. And then, just as the shadows closed in, I heard the last whisper, chilling to my bones: "You have to take their place." Suddenly, the darkness surged forward, consuming me whole as the laughter morphed into wails of victory, echoing my impending doom. The icy fingers of despair wrapped around me as the shadows roared, hungry and insatiable. In the blink of an eye, I was descending into a realm choked with their grief, my own identity slipping away like sand through my grasp. The cacophony of despair wrapped around my senses, drowning out the distant echoes of laughter, now transformed into guttural weeping that clawed at my soul, that I found myself standing on a crumbling path illuminated by a dim, ghostly light, faint and otherworldly. The air was thick with a stench that spoke of rot and decay, a morbid invitation to probe deeper. Each step echoed in the void as if the earth beneath me resented my presence. The landscape shifted, revealing scattered remnants of what once were, shadows of a civilization long devoured by darkness, the decaying husks of homes entombed in the agonies of their inhabitants. With every step, I felt the presence of the spectral figures. They whispered stories of unending torment, their shadows shifting unnervingly close, eager to break into the light. I focused on the remnants of the diary still clutched in my hand, its pages now slick with an oily sheen. Thoughts flickered back to the woman, her haunting visage, her desperate plea for liberation. Was it her fate that awaited me? As I wandered, I spotted a figure slumped against what appeared to be a crumbling shrine, its form indistinct, obscured by swirling wraiths of mist. I approached, each step weighed down by an unseen force that threatened to crush my resolve. The closer I got, the more I noticed the details: a long black kimono trailing the figure, the edges frayed and stained, a cascade of dark hair that tumbled over its shoulders like ebon silk. "Help me," the figure rasped, the voice broken like glass. My heart leaped. Could this be her? Could it be the same woman whose anguish echoed in my dreams? But as I drew closer, the silhouette twisted, revealing a face distorted by despair, eyes hollow and haunting. "You must choose," she said, her voice cold as winter's breath. "To release me is to bind yourself to my fate. Are you prepared to yield all for the truth?" The spectral tendrils writhed around me, thrumming with malevolent energy. I fought against the urge to recoil, my heart pounding with a morbid curiosity. "What do you mean?" I stammered, the words barely escaping my lips. "The secrets of the past are devoured by time, yet they remain here, lingering like shadows. They seek to thrive through blood and anguish," she said, her tone shifting, laced with an eerie urgency. "To understand, you must embrace the burden of their sorrows." No, I shook my head, clutching the diary tighter as though it could shield me from the truth. "I didn't come here to be trapped," but the shadows deepened, clawing at my resolve. Voices wrapped around me in a dissonant symphony, a chorus of regret and anguish battering my mind, each cry pulling me further into their world. The woman's face flickered with glimpses of horrid memories, moments of betrayal, desperate pleas for love, the ultimate sacrifice, and the blood that soaked the earth beneath me. "Those who came before you," her voice dripped with bitterness, "they sought to unravel the very essence of their heart's desires, and in doing so, they became the intricate threads of this tapestry of torment. You are not the first to be lured by the whispers of the diary." That I felt the ground beneath me tremble, restless spirits writhing in agony, demanding the price of entrance. I wanted to scream, to break free, but the shadows tightened around my neck, their cold breath suffocating my will. "Unlock the secrets," came the wraith-like echoes, mingling with my own desperation. The grotesque figure loomed once more in my mind's eye, its cruel smile smirking at the chaos surrounding me. I was left with a single pulse of terror pulsing in my veins. Would I, too, become part of this unending horror? As the wall of shadows converged, I could feel the warmth of the diary seep into my skin, and an overwhelming compulsion to read its pages gripped me with feverish urgency. Against all reason, I opened the diary once more, each turn of the page an invocation of the forgotten. With each word, I was irrevocably chained to the legacy of those who had vanished within its ink. The air thickened, and I gasped as the shadows morphed into a whirlwind, spiraling tighter, curling around my limbs. I was caught between the despair of the woman before me and the unrelenting grip of an ancient curse that hungered for my soul. "Choose," she shrieked, her voice piercing through the cacophony. The shadows whispered in a dark chorus, the air growing stale and oppressive. Just as I felt the fleeting warmth of recognition, a deafening roar erupted from the ground beneath, surging forth till the very earth cracked open. The shadows surged forward, and I felt the pull of a chasm created by centuries of despair and blood. I turned to flee, but the ground trembled violently as the writhing mass twisted and howled, erupting like a volcano of nightmares. I was thrust into an abyss, and in that critical moment, I glimpsed her terrified expression one last time before the scream swallowed me whole. "Take my place," she shrieked, desperation clawing at her features, and then, darkness claimed me entirely. I awoke wrapped in an icy shroud of darkness, a shadowed dimension where time and reality melted away. The last vestiges of the woman's scream echoed in my mind, resonating in the marrow of my bones. I struggled to rise, but the heaviness of despair pressed down like an immeasurable weight, a blanket of desolation that threatened to smother my very essence. Around me, a chorus of whispers rose and fell, each word a shard of ice embedded deep in my consciousness. The specters of those lost to this realm hovered at the fringes of my vision, their distorted faces mirroring the terror relentlessly consuming me. I blinked, trying to gather my thoughts, grasping at the remnants of reality that slipped through my fingers like grains of sand. The shadows pulsed against the dim glow of a distant light, inviting but foreboding. My heart raced, each beat a drum echoing through the void, urging me to choose a path even if it was one shrouded in darkness. I staggered forward, driven by curiosity and terror alike. The whispering grew louder, the voices crashing like waves against jagged cliffs, an ominous reminder that I was not alone in this nightmare. "Release them," came the low, gravelly voice of a figure emerging from the shadows, cloaked and tall, its eyes shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Though its face was obscured, the air thickened with an aura of malevolence. "You have awakened our hunger. You tread upon sacred ground, mortals believing in their courage to seek the truth. What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice trembling against the insidious echoes swirling around me. "To satiate the hunger, dear soul, you must surrender," it hissed, the sound curling around my mind like smoke. "You must immerse yourself in the blood of others' sorrow." A wave of nausea washed over me as memories, yanked from the depths of the diary, flooded my mind's eye. Blood dripping from the edges of a ceremonial dagger, the soft whispers of forbidden love, each entwined with agony and betrayal. The spectre loomed closer, and I recoiled, sudden recognition washing over me. Beneath the darkness lay the face of the concubine, once vibrant and now twisted in torment, her eyes seeping with the grief of ages past. "You wish to understand," it sneered, drawing nearer. "You will become one with our sorrows, and only then can you see the truth." Before I could grasp the enormity of its words, the shadows jerked violently, and the ground trembled beneath my feet. Swirling vortexes of darkness spiraled from every corner, pulling at the edges of my sanity. I screamed, fighting against the surge, my hands desperately clutching at the earth, yet the shadows beckoned with insistent promise. Suddenly, a searing pain sliced through my chest, as though a dagger had plunged deep into my heart, mirroring the anguish of those who had danced on the threshold of despair before me. A small voice echoed in the tumult of my thoughts, "You must embrace their suffering, it's the only way." With no choice but to succumb, I sank to my knees. I envisioned the fragmented lives trapped within the pages, their grotesque silhouettes wailing against the unyielding solitude of their eternal confinement. I could sense the thoughts weaving together, intertwining like roots of a cursed tree, deeply embedded in the soil of suffering. "Let their anguish be your own," the cloaked figure urged, looming like a harbinger of doom. I felt a chilling surge of memories rushing through my visions of betrayal, bloodlust, the weight of unwelcome love burdening my spirit. I gasped under the pressure as if I were drowning in a sea of sorrow, fragments of their lives already wrapping around me like chains, whispers urging me forward, and then, abruptly, the visions shattered, leaving jagged pieces of despair in their wake. I gasped, swaying as the weight of another's suffering tried to possess me. A warmth spread across my skin, a grotesque realization dawning, pulsating through me like a dark heartbeat. What if I were not just a witness but the catalyst of their torment? "Join us," they cried, the chorus rising, each longing steadily escalating. "You are bound now, and you cannot escape." In that moment, I felt a fierce tug pulling me deeper into the maw of despair, as if the diary itself surged with life, its spine quaking violently against my fingers. Shadows rushed in, swirling tightly around my body, and just as the agonizing pressure intensified, the diary flew open, pages tossing themselves in a frantic dance, revealing what lay hidden in the folds of sacrifice and darkness. From its depths, a single line glimmered, an incantation imbued with raw power and anguish: "To break the tether, the blood of the innocent must be spilled." A scream clawed at my throat as the shadows howled in response, echoing the sinister legacy that now coursed through my veins. I was no longer fated to witness, I was tangled in this web, a puppet clad in shadows. With a final surge, the shadows converged around me, a cyclone of agony and desire folding in on itself, and as I was lifted from the ground, the breath of countless lost souls entangled with mine. Gasping, I became the focus of their collective wrath, sensing my fate as the unwitting harbinger of their doom. Just then, something shattered the darkness, a flicker of light emerging beyond the chaos pure and blinding. My fate lay suspended between two realms, each agonizing breath stolen by the shadow that demanded I plunge into the darkness. Choose. Eternity awaits your salvation or your doom. But as the truth settled upon my soul like a shroud, the final words of the diary echoed in my mind, reverberating with a chilling promise, awakening the hunger within. Only blood can appease the curse. Who will you sacrifice? And with that, the light dimmed, shadows circled, and a final scream erupted from the depths of my throat, freezing as the darkness closed in. The choice was made, and the light flickered like a dying star, waiting to extinguish completely. The air shifted ominously, a ripple of dread coursing through the veil of darkness that had become my prison. As the last whisper of my intention reverberated in the void, I felt myself plummet deeper into the pit of despair, the shadows around me dancing with manic delight. I clawed the air in a futile attempt to break free, feeling the pulse of forgotten lives thumping in my consciousness, each beat echoing with longing and pain. Choose. The sinister voice resonated within the fabric of my mind, fusing with the breath of the lost. Sacrifice is the key to unlocking the truth. In the throes of this infinite night, I felt the presence of the concubine growing stronger, an unwavering grasp on my heart, pulling me closer to her lingering despair, her ghost a reflection of my very soul. With each passing second, her suffering intertwined with my own, a tapestry woven with threads of agony, betrayal, and darkened love. Before I could comprehend the harrowing choice ahead, an overwhelming sensation swept through me, an engulfing terror laced with a profound sadness. The shadows pressed into my flesh, sharp as blades, forcing the realization that I was far from a mere observer. I was entwined with their curse, a part of their exquisite torment. The flickering light on the edge of my vision pulsed like a heartbeat, illuminating the tangled mass of shadows swirling around me. I felt a horrific urgency to grasp it, but each moment was pulled by the gravity of the shadowed legacy surrounding the diary, twisting memories that scattered like ashes in the wind. Do you love them enough to take their pain? The cloaked figure's laughter echoed, a guttural sound that resonated with both danger and longing. Their lives will shimmer brightly through your own suffering. Sacrifice is not just a gesture, it's the voice of the forgotten, the promise to eternal shadows. That I clawed at my own consciousness, desperate to break free of its suffocating hold. Each breath felt heavy, each heartbeat a countdown to the dread-laden choice that loomed just beyond my grasp. Visions flickered in and out of focus, faces, twisted in anguish, cried out to me, begging for release while simultaneously demanding retribution. One by one, they began to materialize, ethereal forms surrounded by an almost palpable haze of despair, a woman with gnarled fingers that reached toward me, her teary eyes imploring release, a man whose silent scream shattered the darkness, echoing the weight of lost dreams, and the spectral concubine herself, her lips whispering promises that twisted closer to hunger than love. Panicking, I tore my gaze from their hollow expressions and darted toward the flickering light, which now seemed to pulse in time with the rhythms of my heart, urging me forward. I had to choose light or shadow, but the weight of despair just wouldn't allow me to leave. Before my next thought could escape my lips, the women's faces twisted with anger, her pale skin darkening with fury that swirled around us like tempest. You would abandon us? You would condemn us to wander eternally? No. I shouted, clutching my head as her voice ripped through my mind, resonating with a despair I had never known. You are wrong. I want to help you. A chilling laughter erupted between them, reverberating off the shadowed walls. To help us means to suffer as we have. What will you give in exchange? Who will bleed to save us? Their cries mingled together into a cacophony I could hardly bear, each syllable clawing at the very root of my soul, demanding a response. The weight of expectation crashed upon me, filling my lungs with the thick, stagnant air of the dead. In that moment, the light flickered again, dimming almost to extinction, reminding me that time was slipping through my fingers. The shadows coiled tighter, yet amidst the storm of anguish, I felt a desperate flicker of self-preservation. I was not strong enough to make such a choice, yet I could not bear the torment pressing down upon me. With a resolve I scarcely understood, I shouted into the void, if someone must be sacrificed, let it be me. Spare them. But as the words left my lips, the world shattered in a blinding flash of crimson light swirling through the shadows. In that heartbeat, I sensed something shift within the very fabric of our nightmarish reality, something dark and ancient unfurling around me, whispering secrets not meant for mortal ears. The shadows began to fracture, revealing a hidden path where chaos congealed into something tangible, something almost alive. I stumbled backward, heart racing, as the cloaked figure drew closer, its eyes glinting with satisfaction. Ah, sweet sacrifice, but beware, mortal. The pact is not just with our sorrow but with your soul as well. The whirlwind around me converged into a whirlpool of despair and hope. I gasped in horror at my own choice, a choice made too hastily. Before I could think, the spectral hands of the concubine shot from the shadows, entwining around my throat, and I was pulled into her grip, her voice cutting through the air like a knife. Welcome to eternity, dear soul, she rasped, and as darkness enveloped me, I felt the weight of every decision I had made shattering into 1,000 fragmented possibilities, only to behold the unholy glow of the diary's page turning one last time, revealing a name inscribed within one that froze my heart in an icy grip. It was my name, inked in blood. And then, an unearthly howl erupted through the galaxy of darkness, seismic and resonant, leaving me with only one dreadful truth: the choice would not just bind me to their suffering but would awaken something infinitely more terrifying, a predator yearning for blood. The shadows coiled tighter around me, an oppressive darkness that pressed against my skin, merging the ghostly figures with whispers that taunted and beckoned. Your fate is intertwined with theirs, sweet sacrifice, came the echo, the cloaked figure now an indistinct mass of despair and glee. The diary lay sprawled at my feet, pages fluttering as though infused with a life of their own. The names danced across the parchment, all written in crimson ink that glimmered menacingly, as if each stroke was a pulse, a heartbeat of the souls bound within. That I struggled to comprehend the enormity of my plight. My name was there, etched permanently within the confines of that cursed journal. Fear snaked through me as I remembered the legends whispered in the shadows of folkloric tales, where names held power over life and death, where ink became blood, binding the bearer to the whims of the forgotten. Would I become just another lost soul, tethered to this existence by the chains of a pact forged in haste? The spectral hands tightened around my throat, and with each heartbeat, I felt myself being dragged deeper into the shadows, deeper into the lives of the bereft who whispered sweet sorrow into the darkness that now yearned for more than mere empathy. I could see their faces now, festering with anguish, but also with an insatiable hunger, reflecting their torment back at me, a treasure trove of resentments and regrets woven into a tapestry of undying love and unrelenting revenge. Stand with us, or be devoured. One of the female figures screeched, her voice an anguished wail that transcended the barrier of death. I saw fragments of futures, lost children weeping for mothers who had been careless enough to seek the shadows for solace. I saw betrayals that would fuel a cycle of violence, every face pleading for redemption. Racked with emotion, I stumbled to the diary, entranced by its maddening allure. My fingers grazed the pages, hesitant, trembling under an invisible weight. What do you need from me? I gasped, intoxicated by the power that beckoned. Tell me, please. I will give whatever is asked, the figures hissed in response, that all too familiar laughter wrapping around me like a shroud. To save us, to free us from this prison, you must relinquish the light within you. But know, dear sacrifice, that the dark will not rest. It hungers for blood, the blood of the innocent, the blood of your kin. That a resonating fear coursed through my veins, yet I felt the earlier currents of determination rising. I couldn't lose myself to dread, there had to be a way to protect those I loved from this insatiable darkness. I will do it. I shouted, my resolve crashing like a tidal wave against despair. Tell me what to do. The shadows writhed with chaotic delight at my pledge. Choose your vessel, they whispered, their voices blending into a melancholic symphony. An offering will be required. Choose who shall bear your intent, who shall spill their blood. In that terrifying moment, I saw them again, the faces of my family and friends. Their laughter filled my ears with memories, all jolting me from the bleakness. Could I sacrifice anyone to save the ghosts? No. I would never drag another innocent into this abyss. But the shadows mocked my denial, swirling and coiling, testing my will. The diary beckoned again, its pages now turning violently, revealing a passage that screamed to be read. To hold the reins of fate, it defined, one must shed their own blood, only then shall the scales balance. My heart raced at the implication, but also at the inexplicable surging sensation of dread. A harrowing excitement mingled with horror. Without warning, the cloaked figure lunged, drawing closer still, its fingers grasping at the edges of my consciousness. You will pay your fare, an offering will be made. It hissed, its voice dripping with malice. The spectral concubine emerged from the shroud of shadows, her eyes ablaze with fury and longing. She drew closer, whispering words of strife and fate which I could scarcely comprehend. Instinctively, I recoiled as the others surged towards me, desperation twisting their once beautiful forms into grotesque masks of agony. Just as they seemed poised to engulf me, the whirlwind of darkness shifted, and I felt the cold caress of the diary's energy wrap around my heart. The pages flipped violently, revealing a harrowing litany of the lost, torn between the need to save them and the preservation of my own soul. I realized this would be the moment of reckoning. I grasped the diary tightly, surrendering a shred of hope and innocence that pulsed within me, unsure of how much suffering I could carry or whether salvation rested where shadows nipped at my heels. Desperation echoed through the abyss, and I found myself on the precipice of decision, pulled by both light and darkness, pushed to choose a fate not just for myself, but for the hollow souls demanding release. As I prepared to plunge into the depths of this eternal contract, the diary snapped shut with a deafening clap, and a deafening silence filled the tortured chamber. The shadows recoiled as a new voice, pure and chilling, descended upon us, echoing all around. I am the vessel of your nightmares, it whispered, and you will pay dearly for your transgressions. And then, as lights flickered precariously, I felt a presence behind me, unmistakable warmth of someone I adored, hovering on the threshold of this condemned world. No! I screamed, my heart shattering as I turned to see them standing there, innocent and real, just as the darkness curled up to swallow the last glimmers of hope. As the shadows converged and laughter rang out, the finality of my choice hit me, an irrevocable wrong turn, leading to the one thing I feared the most. The blood of the innocent would now be demanded, and it would be the one I loved most dearly. The room turned to ice, each shadow becoming more distinct, more intricate, as they tightened their grip around my collapsing heart. The instant I beheld the figure standing in the doorway, I felt the tremor of dread course through my being. It was not just anyone, it was my little sister, Aiko, her eyes wide with confusion. She looked so small, so vulnerable, blissfully unaware of the sinister forces swirling about us, bait in a cruel game set in motion by something far older and malevolent. Aiko! I cried, the weight of my voice steeped in panic as I rushed toward her, desperate to shield her from the maelstrom that hungered for her warmth. Get back! But the words felt futile, trapped within my chest, for the shadows coiled with a hungry anticipation, eager to draw her in. The room flickered as if caught between two realms, a place where innocence fought against the encroaching darkness. The cloaked figure, now fully embodied in my line of sight, seemed to swell with glee at the prospect of my turmoil, its grotesque visage warping into a leering grin. Ah, sweet Aiko, it cooed, its voice honeyed and dripping with malevolence. Such a delicate flower, she would make a splendid offering, wouldn't she, no? I shouted again, now lunging toward my sister. My heart thundered with an instinctual fear, a primal call to protect. As I reached out, the diary slipped from my grasp, landing with a resounding thud on the stone floor. The pages fluttered open once more, revealing lines written in shaking script, detailing sorrowful accounts similar to that of Aiko's fate, the twisted pledges of those who had stood in my place before. Aiko remained frozen, eyes wide in innocent wonder. What is happening, Ni-chan? She asked, her voice like fragile glass in the chaos surrounding us, trembling yet unwavering. Where are we? My gaze darted from the specters edging closer, their wails morphing into an ear-splitting chorus that echoed deep within my soul. You have to run, Aiko. There's no time. I screamed, but my voice felt like a wisp of smoke against the roaring tempest of indistinguishable laughter. Just then, a cold breeze swept through the chamber, carrying with it the scent of rot and decay, a pungent reminder of the cost of entrapment and despair that the diary promised. Once the kindling is chosen, the shadows crooned as one, there is no turning back. Will you forsake the innocent to sate the darkness? They were now circling us, their shapes devoid of coherence, a churning mass of anguish that sought to tear us apart at the seams. Please, Aiko. My heart wrenched at the thought of failure. I can't lose you. You don't understand what they want. She took a small step back, fear transforming her innocent countenance, but as I extended my arms to comfort her, a dark tendril lashed out, snaking around my wrist with a grip like freezing iron. It yanked me forward, unnerving elements of the cruel history woven by the concubine's fate. The diary's resonance grew louder, reverberating through the chamber like the heartbeat of an unfathomable beast. As I struggled against the pull, I felt the warmth from Aiko slip further from my grasp. Ni-chan. She called, her voice muffled beneath the relentless tide of shadows. In a moment of horrified clarity, I realized she was now attuned to the influence of the diary, drawn to its commands like a moth to flame. The shadows danced with renewed energy, and I could feel my own resolve beginning to wane. You cannot protect her, the cloaked figure hissed, its voice reverberating within the very marrow of my bones. To weave back the despair, you must pay the price, Aiko. I struggled to breathe against the dark suffocating embrace. My identity waged war against the sacrifice demanded not just of me, but for her. Listen to me, please. Don't come closer. The ethereal sounds intensified, a cacophony rising to a fevered pitch. I could see the tendrils flickering with impatience around Aiko, forming grotesque shapes that clawed for her very essence. Choose. The abyss screamed, its hunger palpable and raw, trembling with anticipation. Choose the innocent, or let the darkness consume you both. Aiko looked at me, a glimmer of recognition passing through her wide eyes. She saw the shadow's terror wrapping around us, and for the first time, she understood the magnitude of our looming demise. In that split second, I knew that this was not just a battle for my soul or hers, but a test of will against a demonic longing for chaos. Suddenly, a rending shriek pierced the air, a spellbinding announcement that shattered the frenzy. Another dark figure emerged from the shadows, one that bore features unmistakably familiar, a reflection of my own visage distorted by grief and despair. I can save you, it wailed, each word resonating with an undercurrent of twisted affection. Just give yourself. Join us. In that moment, the light dimmed, drenched in insurmountable darkness, as I stood on the brink of a devastating choice. It was either to abandon the one I loved in the name of saving us both, or surrender my very essence to this hellish creature that clung to my soul with an unyielding grasp. Make your choice. The shadows shrieked in terrifying unison as I felt the enormity of the decision weighing more than my mere flesh could bear. Silence loomed, heavy and dire, before the darkness rippled with eager anticipation, and as I glanced back at Aiko, the searing truth crashed upon me like a tidal wave. The choice lay in my hands, but the blood that would spill was a direct consequence of either path I took. With the shadows creeping ever closer, there was only one certainty in this twisted struggle: the darkness would not wait. Choose, now, they hissed, the echoing voices trailing into the abyss. And there I stood, my heart pounding, knowing that whatever path I took would drown us in despair. One final moment stretched into eternity. The clamor of shadows rang loud in my ears, but all I could see was the reflection of my sister, innocent and utterly unaware, as horror lurked just beyond her reach. In that gut-wrenching heartbeat, the ground began to quake beneath us, the air rumbled with an otherworldly resonance, and chaos descended, spiraling and folding upon itself like the fabric of reality itself. The final veil of darkness lifted just as Aiko reached out toward me, eyes pleading, and then, darkness erupted, engulfing everything in its insatiable grasp as I stood paralyzed, on the cusp of an unspeakable choice that would seal our fates. The ground trembled, splintering underneath the weight of shadows that coiled and beckoned. Time took on a life of its own, stretching into an agonizing limbo as I stood, heart racing, suspended between salvation and despair. Aiko's hand reached for mine, shimmering like a distant star caught in a storm of blackened skies. Don't touch her. I roared, shaking against the tightening grip of the tendrils clawing for my essence. Every fiber of my being screamed for release, for freedom from this cursed legacy that sought to chain us both to its unholy will. Your choice, dear brother, the cloaked figure's voice coiled around me, a dark lullaby woven with mockery. Your sister's life teeters on the edge of darkness. Will you save her, or will you succumb to your own fears? I could feel the despair wrapping around my heart, squeezing the hope from my veins. Aiko's eyes, once bright and innocent, reflected a flicker of comprehension, a dawning horror mingling with vulnerability. She looked at me, truly seeing me for the first time, and in that moment, I found an unexpected strength surging within, a desperate longing to protect her at any cost. Behind Aiko, a tapestry of shadows writhed, revealing grotesque faces that twisted and melded into the very walls of this forsaken space. Their wails filled my heart with icy terror, echoing the anguished cries of forgotten souls who had been lured to their despair. Every life has a price, the abyss murmured seductively. What do you value most? Your sister, or your freedom? Sacrifice one, and the other shall live. No. I screamed, shaking my head violently, denying their dark whispers. Both of us will escape this. You can't take her. But my words felt hollow, drowned beneath the waves of despair thrumming against the fragile fabric of my sanity. Aiko lifted her hand, her somber gaze locking onto the shadows dancing at the corners of the room. Ni-chan, too, can feel them. They're so sad, she murmured softly, her inflection trembling with an eeriness that twisted my gut. The shadows surged forward at her words, shadows of children, mothers, and fathers, lost souls drowning in a sea of torment. No. Don't listen to them. My voice cracked under the pressure of urgency. I had to pull her back from that edge before she plunged headlong into darkness. They're using you to break me. They want to claim you, but I want to help them. Her voice softened, an ethereal echo of innocence on the brink of surrender. What if they just need someone to see them? The shadows, momentarily stilled, seized the moment, their voices rising to a sinister crescendo, whispering promises only a child could trust. Embrace us, sweet girl. We were once like you, lost and abandoned. Offer us your heart, and they will not have to suffer any longer. Stop it. I roared, pain threading through my chest as I felt her inching closer to their seduction. The specters swirled tighter, and the winds gathered strength, howling furiously against my desperate pleading. They want to take your light. You're so much stronger than this. But then, as if sensing my doubt, the cloaked figure beckoned, and the air turned electric with hunger. It reached out towards Aiko, its gnarled fingers stretching impossibly long, brushing against her cheek. Join us now, dear girl. Allow us to cradle you in our despair, Aiko, please. My voice cut through the tempest, but I could feel every moment stretching painfully thin. The shadows pulsed with dark eager anticipation, wrapping around me, constricting my breaths, and whispering dark verses that curled around my mind. My surroundings began melting away, the room dissolving into an expanse of darkness. Aiko's frightened face lit only by flickering, ghostly flames of despair. Ni-chan. She whispered, the vulnerability crumbling her resolve. Run. Get out. I screamed feebly, but the words fell like tiny stones into a chasm of despair, echoing fruitlessly. The shadows surged, their voices a tumultuous chant climbing higher, drowning out every thought until all I could hear was Aiko's panicked breath. They shifted, forming grotesque shapes in the air, unfurling demonic limbs that threatened to ensnare her entirely. A groan of fear erupted from my throat. I could not let them win. I had to sever this bond before it devoured her entirely. Aiko, remember the story I told you? The one with the brave hero who fought against the darkness to save his sister. I forced the words through clenched teeth, praying she would hold on to that glimmer of hope. Her eyes widened, a flicker of recognition sparking deep within. Ni-chan, with every ounce of adrenaline surging through my exhausted limbs, I tore free from the wicked grasp entwined around my heart and lunged between her and the approaching tide. I'll take their price. Just don't let them get to you. I yelled, determination carving strength into my weak voice, until the ground shook violently beneath us, and the air shattered. A violent pulse erupted from the very walls, echoing with anguished screams. Another figure emerged from the shadows, this one not of torment but of a distorted reflect-iona version of me, reflecting despair so profound it pierced the heart with sorrow. Do you truly believe you can save her? This grotesque image spoke, the voice a rasping echo of my own, but laced with bitterness and pain. You can join us. You can find peace in the darkness, but you must give everything, no. I shouted. But the darkness had already gathered strength, dragging me toward the very edge of oblivion, pulling me back, and pulling Aiko along as well. As I teetered on the precipice of my own demise, the twisted visage of despair loomed over me, taunting with dark promises. In that moment, the raw horror of the choice settled heavily within my chest, the final act that would either destroy us or set us free, and then, as reality began to warp, fractures forming in the air around us, both Aiko and I locked eyes, the truth unraveled in a fleeting fragment of time. There was no escaping the dark price that waited, and whatever decision I faced now would echo through the very fabric of our souls. Just as I found my voice to confront the encroaching absence of hope, the ground ripped wide beneath me, swallowed by an abyss swirling with chaos and shadows dancing fiercely. And all I could do was scream as everything collapsed. Aiko. Her name echoed into the void, a haunting reminder against the silence about to engulf us both. And then, with a violent pull, the darkness wrapped around me, and I could feel her slipping away, like sand through my fingers, a last flicker of warmth vanishing into the cold. I don't know how long I drifted in that void, separated from everything and everyone I loved. The darkness became my prison and my tormentor, an endless expanse that swallowed hope whole. My name was now a whisper lingering on the tips of shadowy tongues, reverberating in a loop of despair. I was lost in the churning storm of consciousness, swathed in the echoes of Aiko's frightened screams, the weight of her innocence pressing down on me like iron chains. I could still feel her warmth fading, her fragile laughter trapped in a moment like a distant melody, and I knew that this was the price I had to pay for daring to unearth the secrets of this nightmare. The whispers intensified around me, like raindrops falling into an abyss, tantalizingly familiar. Chosen, they hissed, their voices merging into a twisted symphony. You sought truth. Now, you will carry the weight of your loved one's pains. I trembled at the implication. The shadows swelled, murmuring promises that danced on the edge of temptation. They wove images of pain and sorrow, stories of lives long extinguished by the cruel hand of fate, secrets drenched in the blood of innocence begging for release. Suddenly, a spark of light flickered in the depths, drawing me nearer. I felt the pull of something beyond despair, a glimpse of Aiko's voice laced with urgency, the shimmering echoes of her laughter flaring up in defiance against the shadows. Ni-chan. Her voice surged through me like an electric current, invigorating my spirit. You can't give up. Please. I fought against the compulsion urging me to succumb, to let the shadows cradle my fears in sweet surrender. I had to save her, I had to break free from this malevolent grip. As if responding to my relentless spirit, a path of flickering light unfolded before me, a radiance slicing through the oppressive aura of darkness. I stumbled forward, every ounce of determination flowing through my limbs like fire, propelling me towards the illuminated expanse. And with every step, the whispers grew desperate, the turmoil of the shadows transforming into agonized cries. They clawed at my flesh, insisting I relent, attempting to drag me back into their murky depths. But I would not yield, I would not let them take Aiko. Release me. I howled into the cacophony, fueled by a fervent desire to reclaim my sister from their suffocating grasp. With each revelation, I felt the looming shadows pulsate, feeding off my anguish. Stop feeding off my pain. I cried, my resolve stealing. I'll break this cycle. Then I heard her call again, sweeter compared to the harsh chorus of agony surrounding me. You're stronger than the shadows. You can set us free. Her voice, my tether, anchored me in this tempest of despair, and at that moment, I felt the power of my willingness flood through me, igniting a quiet storm of defiance so fierce that it drew a ripple of fear among the haunting figures. The atmosphere shifted around me, the darkness recoiling, swirling as I pushed forward. The echo of the diary's legacy whispered an incantation trapped in my heart, reminding me of the ritual that once bound the souls to this Placia rite dependent on sacrifice. I had to harness that knowledge if I wanted to save Aiko. I choose light. I choose love. I shouted, my voice a battle cry against the clamor of shadows. The shadows thrummed with fury, twisting in frenzy as I charged headlong toward the flickering light. Just as the monstrous figures lunged forward, desperate to claw me back into their abyss, I reached the edge of the luminescent realm of hope, tender and bright. I felt the warmth wrap around me like a silken embrace, pushing back the cold tendrils of despair, and in an instant, I saw her, a shimmering silhouette of Aiko standing just beyond the threshold. Aiko. I shouted. I'm coming. I won't let you go. With renewed strength, I surged forward, the shadows dissipating around me as I leaped into the light. I extended my hand, reaching for hers, hoping our bond would shatter the chains forged by sacrifice, but as our fingers brushed, a deafening roar shattered the air. The darkness erupted violently, thrumming with desperation. Just as my heart soared at the sensation of her touch, I felt the pulse of something ancient and malignant. A vile entity writhed and twisted, swirling back into existence, more potent than before. Fools! It screamed, echoing across the divide. You think you can escape the burden of the past? You are bound forever. The oppressive weight settled over us as the entity lunged toward my sister, tendrils of shadow stretching like dark fangs, poised to ensnare her light once more. No. I roared, trusting in our bond, letting the love between us sever the bonds of darkness. With a surge of determination, I grasped the diary, summoning its power, that binding essence of countless sacrifices made over centuries, and hurled it into the maw of darkness. The moment the diary slipped through the shadows, it unleashed an explosive burst of radiance, illuminating the realm, casting the darkness back as ancient secrets spilled from its pages like molten light. The howls of anguished souls of the past echoed, their cries severing the veil that clung to existence. The darkness ripped apart, frayed edges disintegrating like dust blown by the wind. Run, Aiko! I shouted, beckoning her toward me, desperate to anchor her in the light. Yet, as she stepped forward, the shadows spun and lashed out, penetrating the very essence of our bond in waves of despair, nearly dragging her back into oblivion. Panic surged through me. I couldn't lose her, but with the remnants of the diary still etched upon my heart, I whispered the name of sacrifice. Aiko's name. I saw her eyes widen in horror as tendrils wrapped around her wrists, inching closer to the edge of darkness. Ni-chan, no. I don't want anyone to get hurt. She cried, tears gleaming like fragments of hope. As the darkness pulled at her, I realized the truth. The sacrifice was not for my sister or myself, but for us both, woven into a single entity, clasped in a timeless dance of light and darkness. To truly release the curse interwoven in the shadows, I had to surrender my essence willingly. Aiko, listen to me. You have to be strong. My love, it's the light that will release us. I focused every ounce of my heart and soul into a single moment, a final act of defiance against the shadows. I choose you, not just as my sister but as my heart, my strength. To break the curse, we must sever this bond together. No. She cried, her voice trembling, eyes wide with disbelief and fear. I reached out, gripping her hands determinedly. Together, Aiko. We do this together. With one last breath, we united, our hearts intertwining in an unbreakable bond filled with warmth and love amidst the chilling tendrils that sought to devour us. We channeled our strength, crystallized our will into a dazzling spark of light, roaring back against the encroaching shadows. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony shriveling as we surged forward, forcing the darkness to bend and break under the weight of our unity. The rift split open, revealing an undefined exit bathed in a brilliant glow. The voices of the tethered souls crescendoed in harmony, their song ringing through the cacophony as they joined our light. The darkness trembled, losing its grip as we propelled ourselves through the brilliant glow, the bright void restoring us to the world above the attic. I'll always protect you. I promised, and felt the warmth of our love enveloping us as we broke free from the darkness. But just before I stepped into the light, a chilling laugh echoed behind me, wrapping around my very core. You can never escape the bloodline. You both belong to me now. Before I could completely merge into the light, a terrifying chill seeped into my Bonisa recognition that lingered like a twisted echo. Aiko! A voice whispered from the shadows. The tunnel of light glimmered behind me, but my body froze, heart racing. The shadows pulsed treacherously, forming an all too familiar silhouette, the youthful visage of the concubine, twisting into something more horrific. You thought you could flee? Her voice was a somber melody, filled with dark promises and ancient spells that in that moment, terrors amassed in my mind, unraveling the spirit of freedom and hope I thought I had grasped. With every ounce of my being, I fought against the frozen fear that seeped into my core. Realization dawning, I grasped Aiko's quivering hand tightly, pushing onward together through the gateway of light, vowing always to keep her safe despite the lingering shadow lurking in the fabric of our fates. And as we breached the boundary between realms, the last echo slipped from my lips, a chilling echo, one that would haunt me forever. Not all horrors can be escaped.